Oh, no.
The most vivid memory would be almost the whole thing. It was just so intense and so crazy because of the atmosphere and the weather and the conditions. It just made it intense, and everybody was crazy, and everybody was under so much pressure to get this thing done, you know. And lo and behold, it wasn't a bad little movie. I can't believe I was part of it. Years ago, I was working at a place called Knott's Berry Farm in Boynton Park, California, and it was an amusement park, a small amusement park. And they had a show there called the Wild West Stunt Show. And at the time, I had a big beard, big guy, and I got talked into auditioning for it, and I got a job. And being terrified of people and being in front of people was just terrible for me, but I ended up working there for years. And one day we decided, there's several guys there that worked there, to do it for real. So we started studying with Gene LaBelle at LA City College, and one thing led to another, and I got my first paying job through that, and from there got a job here, got a job there, and eventually started making a living at it, and had about a 25 to 27 year career in the movie business. We'd been working, you know, for a while, and the John Moyo, who was a stunt coordinator, we worked for John, several of us did, and he goes, I got this job in Texas, and it's called Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Well, we had no idea what it was, you know. Dan Berenger ended up doubling Bill Moseley, Beth Newford doubled Caroline Williams, Jimmy Stephan ended up doubling Dennis Hopper. Now, we all knew each other. We'd worked together before, and we rehearsed the truck scene in front of Danny's house in the valley on my truck, and we were trying to break that down and figure out what we were going to do, what we needed to take, and we ended up taking everything we owned back to Texas just in case. And go back there, the first scene we did was the scene on the bridge, and we did that, and we lived through that, and we come back and the next day and look at the dailies, and you can't see anything. It was too dark. So now we got to go do it again. And so we go back and do it, and next to the last shot, I'm in there with a chainsaw trying to not cut these guys up in the car, these two actors, and lo and behold, I break my wrist on that. So from that point on, I worked with a broken wrist, but we went back as stunt doubles for these actors, but for myself, the tricky part of it was and I insist, and I tell everybody all the time, I'm not an actor. I never pretended to be an actor. I didn't want to be an actor because I'm just not comfortable in front of people, you know, and all that. Doing stunt work, you're in a zone, and you zone yourself out to everything, and you do your job, and you put yourself out there, and so on and so forth. But when there was a scene in the movie where Leatherface comes popping out of a tunnel and chases Stretch, Caroline Williams, down this long Quonset hut covered tube runway, and I did my little, what they call a chair jumper, jump out, and did that 4 or 5 times with the chainsaw and hit the sparks, and and did that reaction and all that. Well, they cut, I'm done, I go walking outside, and a couple of minutes later, there's Bob, you need to be back on set. I said, oh no, I don't want to do it, because it's 160 degrees in this thing. It was 110 degrees every day in Austin, Texas, and 100% humidity. It was terrible. The most miserable experience I ever had. But to go back in there, you know, I'd already taken off my clothes. I was ready, you know, that was it for me. Well, I get dressed again, I go back in there. And I said, well, what's going on? Well, Bill can't lift the chainsaw. You know, they tried to make a lighter chainsaw, and they tried and tried and tried forever, and they just couldn't do it. We had to use the real ones. They dulled the blades down, but we're running real chainsaws with real blades, and it weighed about 75 pounds. It was the biggest chainsaw they made at that time. It was a huge blade on it and the whole thing, and he just couldn't lift it up over his head. So now I'm doing the close-ups, running after her, my POV, her POV. It was all day long, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And then he stepped in for like 2 seconds and did some little thing at the end of it, and that was it. And I go, man, what's going to happen now? Well, anyway, we go on. I did a scene. We were tearing up the radio station. Tobe Hooper's going crazy, you know, trying to get me to do this stuff, you know, and he kept yelling and he yelled at everybody. Not only me, but everybody in the whole thing. And he just, you know, he didn't yell at Dennis Hopper, though. Him and Dennis were like buddies, but he kept yelling. And finally I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he goes, act like you're fucking her. That's what I want. I said, okay, you know, so that was Chainsaw Love. And then I did all that. And then there was another scene where I cut the face off of a guy, and I go on and on and on. There was just everything else. You know, there was a scene in the record vault that I come popping out and hit poor Dan Behringer in the head 3 times, and they put a squib on his plate, burned his head 3 times. He had these nice burn marks everywhere. You know, he got beat up too. Leatherface didn't speak, not too much, a lot of grunts and groans, and you never see his face. But the body language was the key, you know, hand movements, you know, the different scenarios for when he took the face off LG and put it on Stretch, and he picks her up, puts his hat on her, and he gets up and he just starts dancing with her. Well, I just came up with all that crap, you know, and I just started twirling her. But I twirled her very physically, because I thought that's what he would do. Not dainty like he would twirl a lady, but this was something that, you know, he just, because he's a madman and he's strong, and that's what he did. And that's what I came up with.
Get that thing out of here! Maybe it's cracking the main butane tank.
If you look at the movie, there's all these lights were everywhere. All these little lights, big lights, small Christmas lights, just everywhere. And the set was, they measured it like between 160 and 170 degrees, you know, and there was no way to cool it down. They tried, but the industrial air conditioners were breaking because it was so hot. So there would be a bucket of cold beer waiting every evening, and we'd just dive into this thing to replenish ourselves, because it was just, you know, it was crazy. I never worked with a more intense director like Tobe Hooper. He was a very nice guy, but he was so intense, and he chewing on a cigar and drinking Dr. Pepper all day long, and just stomping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, trying to get this. I know the pressure he was under, and when he was under pressure, he put us under pressure. And man, and he wanted this, he wanted that. And a lot of the times we gave him what he wanted, and the times that we didn't do it, man, we found out. And he, like I said before, he was yelling, he would yell at me. And again, I'm not an actor, trying to be an actor. And I guess he was happy in the end of it, but it was crazy. At the very end of the fight, Leatherface gets stuck with the chainsaw, and you see that stuck through my stomach, and it comes out my back. You know, that before Leatherface gets killed and falls on the table. And they put this apparatus on me, and it was held up. It was one end was an electric chainsaw with a wire that went around to the back. so you could see the blade moving on both sides. And this thing, I had a harness on, I had all this stuff on. And when I fell backwards, they had put a groove in the table, so I didn't impale myself when I fell back, but I had to hit that spot. Now, I can't see what I'm doing. I'm just going back, and I just go, hoping, hope I make it. And luckily I did. And, it was just, again, dancing on the table, doing this thing. And none of it made any sense. It was crazy, but very exciting. To be quite honest with you, I thought it was the stupidest thing I ever saw. It was so bad, but that was my perspective, but you got to talk to people now who saw it when they were kids and whose kids saw it. And that's who I talked to. Those are the ones who brought up all these little innuendos and all these little things that were happening that nobody saw, but that were there. And they thought it was probably one of the better, out of all the Chainsaw Massacre movies, number one was iconic, number two was number two, and all the rest were shit. My final thoughts are many. I can just say it was a very unique experience to work with some very, very talented stunt people who are still working today, to work with some amazing actors who are, some are still working, Caroline Williams, Bill Moseley, to work with Jim Sedow. He was another iconic actor. He didn't get his praise like he should have, and so on. And just to be recognized for working in this little itty bitty movie that brought pleasure to so many people, and there's some people that really, really, really enjoyed it. I don't understand, I don't have that passion for that kind of movie, but there's a lot of people, and it's worldwide, it's not here in the United States. People in Germany love Texas Chainsaw Part 2. They just love it, and they're crazy about it, and that's what is so unique about it, and to be associated with that is just great. Not too many people can say that.